We want to call the Board of Civil Service Trustees meeting to order. And on October 26, 2011, I'd like all the board members to please speak up for the recording today. And if there are any individuals wishing to speak, they're going to have to come over to the mic and speak. Stand in front of the mic and speak loudly enough so that they can be recorded. Announcement, compliance with the open meeting laws. Are we in compliance with the open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're moving down the agenda to number 3. Public's comments during the portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, give your name for the record, the amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Moving to number 4. Possible action to approve final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of October the 12th, 2011.
I'll make a motion to approve item 4 for the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of October 12th. Second motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention. One abstention. And all opposed? The ayes have it. Moving to number 5, discussion for possible action to certify eligibility list for buyers. Court clerk, fire battalion chief.
I would like to speak.
Judicial enforcement officer, maintenance worker open. Is there any discussion?
Well, I would suggest, Your Honor, as I've heard somebody wants to speak on the fire battalion list, maybe you'd hold that item, and if anyone wants to speak on any of the other items, you could do the same, but vote those that don't have any discussion as a block, and then come back to the one that somebody wants to speak on.
Okay, so we thank you, Council. We'll move that. And all the other commissioners or board members will move number 5 to after number 8.
You can just take the fire battalion chief out of...
I'll make a motion to approve all the items under number 5 except for fire battalion chief promotional.
Nobody else wants to speak on any other matter except for battalion chief. So that would be the motion.
Okay. A motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
If you wanted to finish 6 and 7 and then come back to what you held.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, item number 6.
I'll make a motion to strike item number 6.
From the agenda, motion has been made to strike item number 6 from the agenda.
I second that motion.
Motion has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving down to number 7, discussion for possible action to certify job description for Siegel class comp, animal control, building services technician, construction inspection supervisor, financial inspection specialist, inspection supervisor, neighborhood development supervisor.
I'll make a motion to approve the items in number 7.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving to number 8, citizens' participation.
Why don't you hold that till after that and do that as the last one would be the recommendation.
Okay.
Council, if we're going to talk about an item on the agenda, does the public comment technically have to come under number 3 as the way the agendas are set up now? I mean, we went right by it.
I believe that as agendized, and there's an individual that wanted to speak on that matter, and we held it.
Okay.
It's been agendized. You pulled that item, let him speak.
I don't have any problem with that. I just wonder if that's how we're supposed to do it. That's what, with the new law.
And I believe that number 3, I guess we're asking because we rarely had anybody here present. Is number 3 the appropriate time for that?
It was well known that he wanted to speak on that by everyone in staff. It's agendized that he needs to make public comment. That's the item. Before you voted on it, he's voiced a concern that he wants to speak.
So yes, I'm taking that as a yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll give the gentleman an opportunity to speak. Please remember that the time may be limited. If the gentleman would like to step to the,
Point of order, I'd like to speak as well, so
I thought you were the only one I saw. If there's others that,
somebody else would like to.
okay,
How many want to speak on this matter? Just two?
just two?
Same item.
please, I'll read.
Both of them on battalion chief?
Same item.
Yes, sir.
Possible.
After you.
Whoever wanted to go first.
Here's the mic, Captain.
Over here.
Thank you.
State your name and make your comments to the board.
So, thanks for letting me speak, first of all. My name is Ed Bellinger, I'm Capital City Fire. And what I want to talk about today was just some of the discrepancies I felt on this last battalion chief's test. This is not easy for me to do. I'm sitting among some of my best buddies here, and I thought the process itself was flawed from the beginning. I think the guys in the ODP committee had an advantage. I took the classes. They had the material for several years, and we got books a couple months prior. Took the classes on my way down, my days off. The book mirrored a similar book in Henderson that was available in 2006, and it encompassed most of the information that we could have easily purchased and had everybody have. For the past 2 decades, this department has always chosen an outside corporation to run the testing process. This was to give each prospective candidate an equal testing field to work from. Choosing 2 retired fire chiefs from the city of Henderson, I felt was a direct conflict of interest. Not only do we have second-generation fire personnel on the City of Las Vegas Fire Department related to retired Henderson fire chiefs, but we train together valley-wide, whether it's in the community, college, officer seminars, multi-agency drills. Chief Miramonics, on several occasions while I was attending ODP classes, stated there would be a written exam weighing 30% and an assessment center weighing 70%. We basically said, end of the story, we're not throwing you any curveballs. It was only after taking the first initial written test that all candidates were informed that there would be 2 written tests, an assessment center, and then an oral board. Furthermore, no resumes would be accepted. To throw out formal education, resumes, and to put an oral board into the equation, the test becomes subjective, not objective. ODB committee members were also instructed in class. They were instructors. This, again, I felt was a conflict of interest. I myself was an instructor at the college for 17 years, and you could possibly lead someone astray or you could hold back pertinent information. It leaves the instructor with a distinct advantage. Appeal questions. This is probably my biggest thorn in my side. On the initial written exam, we're limited to 1 hour. In the past, all promotional exams were allotted as much reasonable time as it took to look over your entire exam. Furthermore, a panel would review said questions. It's my understanding that one person overlooked it, not a panel. Now, I don't know that for sure. That's just hearsay. This, again, would be a conflict of interest and leaves the realm of possibility to simply deny or approve someone at that individual's opinion. You may just not like them personally. Where a panel of 3 could look at the questions and see. After appealing my questions, they were denied. I was personally told by HR that the committee awarded no appealed questions. It was not until the testing process had already restarted that I found out some individuals received points, and Human Resources admitted in an email correspondence that, in fact, I was correct on 2 questions that I know of, and they had retrained their department, so this would not happen again. As for the correction, which they have assured me, it did me no good on my appeal, as I missed the test question. It was simply denied, leaving me with a true understanding of a disparate treatment and furthermore disparate impact. It is my understanding that an ODP committee member at the rank of captain took part in taking the BC's test prior to candidates or may have even written exam. Any of the aforementioned is again a direct conflict of interest. This once again leaves the realm of possibility on the table that this information could be leaked out. I'm not saying he did or didn't. I'm just saying the realm itself to have a captain take and have that kind of information I've never heard of it. There's an old adage, the proof is in the pudding. Well, out of nearly 20 candidates taking this exam, it's my understanding only 7 passed. 5 of those ODP committee members. And of the remaining 2, one of them I know had knowledge of what the material was to be tested on far in advance. Note, all 5 ODP committee members passed. All 5, 100%. Several other candidates who passed initial written dropped out because they were discouraged by the process. They saw the writing on the wall. In closing, as a Class ISO 1 fire department that's attempting to become NIMS, National Incident Management System, compliant, just as Phoenix Fire is, it is my opinion that we could have went out of state. Phoenix may have been a better choice. Either way, tests used from out of state have yielded a less skewed outcome. Furthermore, all the BC applicants are very proud, bright, competitive, and aggressive type people. And none of us need any extra assistance at all on a promotional exam. Respectfully, Ed Don. Thank you.
Given fairness, we're going to limit you to 5 minutes on your discussion or speaking point.
I only got 2 pages.
There you go.
It'll be quick. My name is Eric Littman, and I am currently a fire captain, which recently completed the battalion chief's exam process. If the list is certified today, I will be ranked 6th, which places me outside the promotion parameters of the civil service, quote, rule of 5s at this time. Before I offer my evaluation on the recent exam process, it should be noted that I have extensive experience in taking entry-level, national level, and promotional tests, as well as developing and administering exams. I currently hold certifications as a fire instructor 1 and 2, emergency medical services instructor up to the paramedic level, paramedic preceptor, flashover chamber instructor, and have been an instructor of 3 recruit training academies over the last 10 years at Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, the last one in which I was the lead instructor. In addition, I am currently instructing the Firefighter 1 class at the College of Southern Nevada. I provide the board with my background so that you may know that my personal evaluation of the battalion chief's exam process is based on education and experience over the last 18 years. The certification of the eligibility list for the battalion chief's position before us today has come under scrutiny, which is not uncommon from promotional exams in the past in the fire service. I don't think that's a bad thing. There have been questions raised specifically on ethics of whether individuals that took part in writing the strategy and tactics manual that was required study material, then went ahead and had taken the exam. The fact is, the strategy and tactics manual in question was completed and distributed to all Las Vegas fire stations in September of 2009. It is another fact that in that same time frame, the Deputy Chief of Operations, Tom Miramontes, presented the Strategy and Tactics Manual to the entire department through training groups, and specifically stated the manual was, quote, our Bible for Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, and that it would behoove anyone looking to promote to learn the manual thoroughly. May I remind everyone that that was 2 years before the Battalion Chief's exam. Additionally, when the announcement just recently for the test was posted, voluntary classes were held on a weekly basis for all prospective officers to all ranks to provide further explanation and theory on the manual, positive discipline, and other areas pertaining to the upcoming exam. Additionally, it is important for the board to understand that the manual in question is not just another piece of study material. This manual is designed and currently being implemented throughout the entire department to make the fireground operations efficient, effective, and ultimately safer for all of us on the fireground, especially in an extremely dangerous job. This implementation is the equivalent of changing an operating system from a PC to a Mac. It is similar to what we've done in the past, only with additional continuity and accountability for fire captains and chief officers on the fireground. In my professional evaluation of this exam process, the written portions in the assessment center provided an excellent avenue for Fire Chief Myers and his executive staff to evaluate prospective candidates on their knowledge, skills, and abilities to become a suppression battalion chief for Las Vegas Fire and Rescue. Finally, everyone that was eligible to become part of the process had 2 years to familiarize themselves with not only a main ingredient of the study material for any officer role at Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, but, just as important, the direction in future operations on the fire ground here at LVFR. This is why I stand here today in support of certifying the Suppression Battalion Chief's eligibility list. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comments.
Can I ask a question? Captain, did you say at the end that you support the certification of this list where you are listed number 6?
That is correct. I am not, by our rule of fives and the current civil service exam, I cannot be promoted, and I am number 6 at this time.
Understand.
And I am in full support of the process. Did I have questions about certain individuals that took part in developing this? Maybe at first I did. But if you look at it in its entirety, everybody had 2 years to learn this process. Tom Miramontes, the Deputy Chief of Operations, I specifically remember in training groups, held that book up and said, "This is your Bible. If you want to be promoted, you need to learn this, love it, and know it." I think that was specifically what he said. And that was in September of '09. That's 2 years before we actually took any exam in regards to this process.
Captain, can I ask your positions relative to this list, please?
I wasn't in the class where he held up the book and said, "This was the Bible."
Okay.
I did know that our department was planning on going this way. I came down to take the classes to be a better company officer. I wasn't aware of all the other stuff. My problem was the test itself, some of the intricacies, the process on appealing points.
I felt that's what you were saying early on. I just
I
want to
didn't
make
get
sure.
to carry on and on to the exam.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to even look at the last 10 questions, which I've never heard of. And I know for a fact that I would have gotten the 2 points. They are correct. I actually have emails and correspondence from HR correcting the very test questions I missed.
Okay. This whole issue has hit me in the face today for the first time. I don't feel prepared to make a decision here relative to this at all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so if I may, Counsel, what's our options on this as a board?
Normally, you've got 2 different things you look at. If it were normally just an appeal to you,
Then
we have that
our-
2-step process. This isn't an appeal. An appeal has to be specifically written, has to cite to a final decision being made and alleging that this rule was violated, and it needs to be filed within 10 days. This is not agendized, nor was, to my knowledge, a notice of appeal in that format written. You have in front of you a eligibility list, and the civil service rules give you a number of options. You can certify the list, you cannot certify the list. You could always, I assume, defer decision till another date. The specific language that talks to you about written exams says, whenever the Civil Service Board believes that in the interest of justice, reexamination of any applicant, parenthetical applicants, is required, the board may order the Director of Human Resources or designee to conduct such an examination of all applicants originally tested. So theoretically, you could certify the list, you could not certify the list, or you had, if you believed you had information in front of you that suggested there was an injustice, order reexamination. What I hear Member Steinman saying is that I'd like more information. You could probably ask to have Miramonte speak today, or HR staff, or if you have a need that you'd like more information than that, you could always motion and vote on it as a board whether you wanted to defer consideration and give some direction to staff as to what you want brought back in front of you.
When's the next meeting? Is this the second Wednesday of
Next one.
November? Like the 9th? Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Before you consider those, you might want to inquire from either HR or the departmental staff, is there an immediate need for the list, or are they asking?
Well, this, I mean, I understand a lot of this. However, this, I believe I need to speak to some people and get briefed and understand this process before I just make a decision here on this. I don't feel comfortable with that I know all the facts at this point. Now, you did say there was no appeal made. If there's no appeal made, then are we under an obligation to go ahead and certify?
An appeal generally doesn't apply to the subsurface testing because of that broad rule that I just read to you, whenever you believe the interest of justice. In fairness to the individual, he did ask to come in front of you. He does say before you certify this, I have problems I want to address to you, and I would like you to consider them before you vote. So even though he's not filed an appeal, I don't believe the appeal is the only method of bringing a test review to your session. Had it been something else, a violation of a different section, absolutely.
Well, Counsel, you brought up three different options. One is to vote for, not, and also to ask other citizens here, specifically Mr. Miramontes, to if we had any questions, if he could clarify also. I mean, I would like to have Mr. Or Assistant Chief Miramontes, if that's his position.
Is that all right, Tom?
Mr. Chair? I wish if I could speak for a minute before he speaks. I'd like to give the chief a chance to speak last. Mind if I speak for just a minute? For the record, Doug Johnson. I'm a battalion chief of the city of Las Vegas. I met with Chief Myers and staff in about July of this year to discuss this test. Myself and Chief Stevenson had concerns over the fact that we were using a local company who had relationships, friendships, possibly family ties, we don't know, with candidates involved in this testing process. And so we talked about what kind of safeguards it would be, since we were already contracted with them, or can we get rid of that contract and go with somebody without relationships, right? So we talked about those things. We also talked about making sure the testing process was transparent, making sure that the candidates clearly knew what was expected of them when they did the application. Not that they find out later that resumes weren't allowed and a second test was going to be, a second written test would be administered. So there were some things in there that we asked for in the process, and I'm asking you guys to look at that, even from a legal point of view. Where do we stand and what's our liability? And we have a captain's test going on right now with the same situation. And we have a local company with possibly, friendship, family, whatever kind of ties with a company who's administering the test. And so we had concerns about that. We discussed that. Those of you in the legal got to know that that is unheard of and definitely not within the realm of what we need to do. So that's all we're looking for. And what I was looking for was just that in the future that we make sure that we correct these things, that somebody has oversight. Somebody has oversight then. So whether you certify the list or not is really not the point for me. Is just whether we correct our processes so that our kids and our future candidates have fairness and fair play in the process. So that's
I think we may have a question.
Sure.
And those comments might be very, very instructive, but again, what's in front of you today is going to be an ability to certify, not certify, or in a rare occasion, talk about a re-exam. What they do with other process or future exams is just something I don't believe you can delve into today.
So if we vote to not certify, though, that's not, it doesn't directly kick in the reexamination process. We have a possibility to deny certification, but it could be a postponement bearing getting more facts.
If you disapprove this list, I think it squashes this entire examination. And you've got
Okay,
a
that's
list being
important to know.
proposed.
All right.
I mean, you'd be certifying or disapproving it. If you had more information that you were needing, the option would be to postpone that until the
I have a
hearing.
question. So if we disapprove the list, they would have to start the entire process all over again?
Yes.
And I
So
need-
the
I
option,
need
the option, if you
clarification.
didn't want to do that, would be to postpone decision on it, give some kind of indication to staff what information you want brought back in front of you before you guide it. But
I
if you
have a
voted it
concern
down.
and I need clarification. By relationships, does that mean that, and family ties that you mentioned, does that mean that the company administering the test, they had family ties to the applicants that were applying?
Absolutely close friendships. They worked in those committees together before they became a company. I believe we're one of the first or second companies. So some of the candidates, their fathers worked for these gentlemen.
I have an
And
issue
so
with
it's
that.
just,
one.
we have no clear evidence,
I really
but
have
there
an
were,
issue with that.
you know,
Your Honor, can I speak, please?
Yes, please. And I have a question as to what was the, was there some fiscal decision on using local as compared to out-of-state?
That's what
But we'll give the gentleman a chance to speak first.
Kenneth Kreitzer, Captain Las Vegas Fire and Rescue. I am more than likely that individual they're referring to. My father was the division chief for the Henderson Fire Department. Chief Cavalieri was his boss. There was absolutely no information given. My father did not know I was taking the test until after the results were published. And the only reason he found out that I was taking the test is I chose to tell him because I didn't want him hearing it from somebody else. There was no information passed. There was no knowledge. He had no knowledge I was even applying for the position. Just for the record, that's the relationship that's being accused.
Are you in the first 7?
Yes, sir.
What is your name?
Kenneth Kreitzer,
Okay.
number 5.
Gotcha, number 5. Okay.
And my dad's retired. He no longer works for Henderson Fire.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Tom Marimanes, Deputy Chief, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue. I am the Deputy Chief over operations. I've been running operations for 3 years now. Prior to that, I was promoted in 08, which means I took the assistant training chief's job at that time. So I've been intimately involved with the officer development process that we have, our ODP, and not only the training aspect and the implementation of it. So I'm going to address some of the issues that have been brought up by some of the speakers, and then I'll answer any questions that you may have, okay? The officer, it's been claimed that the ODP committee, it is just from Henderson Fire Department. It is true that the document, we utilize our process with the Henderson Fire Department document, but within that realm, it's really the Phoenix Fire Department. In 2001, when a firefighter died there, Phoenix changed the way they were doing, and they created their strategy tactical manual. 2 years later, Henderson came out, found that manual, brought it to theirs. Our department came out, we saw that Henderson had a manual and developing a manual, and that we brought it to ours. We developed our own committee. Our committee took that source document, and we said, okay, thank you, Henderson. And our committee, that was formed by the fire chief and the operations chief at the time, developed the manual. This is our manual. This manual is not exactly what Henderson. In fact, we're in committees right now with Henderson. We're having conflict because what they're operating under in their manual and what our manual is, there's a little conflict because this is Las Vegas Fire and Rescue Strategy and Tactical Manual. And you have to remember that. Why I say that's the Bible, it's because we all know safety on the fire ground is about operating the same. I have 3 shifts, I have 18 stations, I have all those people out there that are working 24/7. I need to be able to refer them back, because prior to this, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue did not have a strategy and tactical manual. It explains exactly what we want, what we expect at a single-family dwelling apartment. Strip malls, big box, hazmat incidents. That's why it's there. And that's why it's the source document of our testing. 2 years ago, it was implemented out in the field, meaning that was on our SharePoint site, meaning online, and also printed in every fire station has the document printed within the station. It's been available. And I have stood up there and said, this is our Bible. When we go back to testing, and this year, when I spoke earlier this year to the Officer Candidate School, which included the BC candidates and the captain candidates, said, see this manual and the strategy tactical manual and our positive discipline manual. These are the 2 source documents, the main source documents. Okay, so that's the history behind our ODP. We did have committee members made up of captains that were on the officer development committee, no question about that. Somebody had to write the document. That's who the fire chief chose and the operations chief actually at the time. So the committee was formed. There were members of that committee that took this test. Now, Well, last year I had a captain's test. The officer development, the strategy tactical manual was not used in that test last year. We felt it was too early because of the impact of the strategy tactical manual, and our people didn't really get it. And I did not want to put that on our people, that the manual was out there only a year, so young. We barely had gone through an entire training session with all our employees out in the field. So I said, no, not this year, we'll do it next year. And that's what happened. 2 years ago, I started on the process of training the entire department. The entire department, starting in late '09, sat through all the chapters of the officer development program except for the big box. We never got it. We did lecture on big box, but we didn't go through the other elements. Earlier this year, at the officer candidate school, in the last week of April, stood up from Solon. These are the two source documents, strategy tactical and the positive discipline manual. Since late April, they knew those are the two source documents. I said, in order for you to be successful, these are the manuals you need to know if they will be on the test. That's the transparency we've been working for, is that I want them, why wouldn't I want them to know the Bible? Why wouldn't I want them to implement what we need to have now that field and what the department expects? Not just because somebody learned an IFSA book and somebody learned off the NFPA manual, the Las Vegas Fire and Rescue Strategy and Tactical Manual. That's why it's a source document. We acknowledge, the department acknowledges, we had candidates who were on the committee that now took a battalion chief's test. It's unavoidable. Somebody has to write this manual. Whether it's them battalion chiefs or maybe taking a operations chief test, a fire chief's test, it's unavoidable. Somebody has to write this. But that's why we've had the 2 years. There's been 2 years of this, and the department has taught it twice. Once to the entire department, and the second time just to the officer candidates. Yes, I have. And you have to remember, they keep referring to ODP members, officer development program members, as who are on the committee. That's the committee that wrote the strategy tactical manual. So they keep referring to the number of 5. That is inaccurate. The actual number is 2. And here's the history behind that. We actually had 3 candidates who started in the officer development program writing the strategy tactical manual. And not to embarrass anybody, but one of the candidates in the midway through it, even earlier than that, was asked to leave by the fire chief over some other issues. That person did not write a word. The other 2 candidates wrote words. No question about that. Now, and 2 years ago when I implemented to teach the entire department, I taught the battalion chiefs, and then we picked certain captains to help teach the augment. We call those the adjunct instructors. They were picked in conjunction with the drill master at the time, which was Chief Stevenson and myself, and the battalion chiefs. Asking them, who would you like to team teach? I needed team teachers. I wanted the battalion chief there, and I wanted the captains there to teach our crews what was happening in our strategy tactical manual. So adjunct instructors did not write a word. They did teach, no question about that. But they got the same information. We used the same slides in adjunct instructor training as we taught the entire department. And those same slides are on SharePoint with all the notes. So all the training materials that we utilized during the ODP training, the strategy tactical training, is still on SharePoint, and they can access it right there with all the notes, instructor notes. So access has been open and there throughout this entire process. Let's talk, I would like to speak to a couple of things. So easily purchased. He mentioned, Captain Bellinger mentioned anything easily, we could easily purchase this. The department is not going to purchase, the manual is about 300 pages or so, I can't remember exactly, it's quite a lengthy document. So at times the budget cut, so to be fair, we had it online, we had the printed document. We also earlier this year said any candidate that want their own personal copy, we went out, they had it made, and we went and got the printing done for them earlier this summer. To me, the 70-30, the 30% written has always been a qualifier. in all our testing that we've done in our promotion. I've worked with Leonard before within the engineer's test. In the engineer's test, the written is also a qualifier there. This is not unheard of. It's pretty standard action what we have. Sometimes within our department, having 500 people and this many, we use it to reduce the numbers. It's also to ensure that we're taking candidates forward that really understand the material. Okay? So that's why we've used the qualifiers before. The oral board, no resumes. The no resumes, I'm not sure. We did not ask for in the job announcement for resumes. That was my decision. Because one, we didn't rate them anymore. It didn't affect the score this way or that way. I had no means to rate a resume. And so I did not want the candidates to waste hours upon hours creating a resume that they probably haven't done in 20 years when it didn't matter. So that's why I asked for no resume. In the last question, when they took the interview, I asked, do you want to add in? So that they had an opportunity to expand upon anything they wanted. And that's why that question was there. The appeals question. He is correct. There was an appeal board, and it was made up of one person. It was done in decision between myself and Glenna, and that appeals board was me. I feel I was qualified and we were doing it because of crunch time, and as you know, this city, we don't have a lot of hands anymore. We just don't. And so we made the decision to say, yes, I'll review the questions and I'll review the appeals. So I did it, and I feel I'm qualified. 3 years as the chief of operations for Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, who was instrumental in getting the training out for that strategy and tactical manual. Now, when I talked to this Chief Johnson and asked me the question, I answered it truthfully. Yes, Chief Johnson, it was me. He said, well, do you think that was a good idea? I said, well, maybe not. So I then convened a board, which was made up of the subject matter experts that were developing the test, that are intimate in knowledge within the strategy tactical manual, and they reviewed those questions. And in their review, they confirmed my review, that no questions were overturned. They talked about an ODP commander who was also a captain, who was also on, who knew intimate knowledge of the test. I think they're referring to an SME that we utilized, which was a captain. I won't use his name. That captain was utilized as a role player within the subject, within the scenario for this assessment center. We needed role players. So I utilized him because he was also another author of the Strategy Tactical Manual. And we utilized him because he has intimate knowledge, and as well as I've worked with him before, and we knew we could hit our marks with him. He did not know the tactical problem until the very first, during the assessor's training. He was unaware of any of the elements. He did take the written portion, but we did the written portion because we had to qualify. We had to make sure that the written was appropriate. So we brought in 5 different captains. I'm sorry, I take that back. Chiefs and a captain to take that test, and each person only saw small portions of that test. They didn't see the whole test. Nobody saw the whole test. They signed the documents of confidentiality to say you will not discuss this under penalty of discipline and et cetera, et cetera. All those were lined out. This is what we've done for many, many tests. So that did occur. But did he divulge anything? That is incorrect. Now, we talked about the 5 ODP committee members passing. Again, I go back to it's truly only 2 who wrote the document. Let's go through the list here, though, okay? Not using any names. Our number 1 candidate. He was a member of the ODP committee who wrote the document. He is number 1. He was also number 1 on the captain's test. He was also number 1 on the engineer's list. He was also, because I was in that school, he was the number 1 scorer average in his rookie school. I also have a very good test taker, because in the captain's test, he did not participate in the creation of a manual. In the engineer's test, he did not participate in the creation of an engineer's manual. In a rookie school, he did not participate in creating a rookie school manual. The number 2 candidate was the former ODP committee member who wrote but did not write anything. The number 3 candidate on the list was neither, was nothing. It was just a person, a captain, who took the test and did very well. The number 4 person was an adjunct instructor. The number 5 person was an adjunct instructor. The number 6, you've met Mr. Lippman. And number 7 was an ODP committee member who was a writer of the document. So if you think about it, I have a writer here, and I have a writer of that document here. I think that's a pretty good balance. It shows that the test showed that you had to come not only what you knew, what you wrote 3 or 4 years ago, but you had to deliver. And that's the point. Being a battalion chief out in that field is a very difficult position, and we need for them to deliver and show that under pressure. That's what we did. There was people referred to as dropped out as discouraged. I am not sure why they dropped out. No concerns or things were said to me. To HR when I talked to Glenn about why people were dropping out. I'm not sure why they dropped out. Never, even since the test, it has not been expressed to me. As far as my understanding with Local 1285, I have not heard any conflict about the test and concern from the local, who is the bargaining unit, that it's expressed to me about the test, and the test was unfair, unjust, or whatever other verbiage may be used. The local company and friendships. The fire service is a small community, even across the country. Less than 1% of the population is firefighters. Okay? So no matter where we go, there's always a potential. Now, when 2 years ago, last year when I did the captain's test, I was not happy, and I apologize because it keeps sounding like I shouldn't say it, but I wasn't exactly happy with the elements that we had last year by a different contractor. I have been searching for a different contractor. So in fact, I went last December to Albuquerque, saw that people were doing a test, what I thought, which was a active role-playing back and forth on the scene kind of simulation that I wanted to see out of our battalion chiefs and captains. So I grabbed that guy. Chief Campbell, who is retired and he got a job up north, he also then, in a conversation, talked to HRTA, which is the company that we did utilize, saying that they were forming this company and testing. Knowing what we're trying to achieve, knowing the kind of product that the people they are and what they deliver, knowing that it's a local company helping our local economy, knowing all these things, and believe me, HR talked and investigated the concerns that were there. HR had a concern, to be honest with you, right off the bat. And Vincent and Morick expressed that they looked into what the issues were over there and if we had any conflicts. HR, we've worked hand in hand with our HR department. There's been no step that we haven't been working together. So this is not about firefighters running and just doing what we want because we're trying to hold it and get certain people, whatever. This is about doing what we're supposed to do as a city, working together with our HR department, with us being the subject matter experts. HR has approved everything throughout this entire process, including the contract with HRTA. Within the orientation, and believe me, what I've recognized is I am and the fire chief, and I apologize to the fire chief not being here, you had a conflict with the schedule. Transparency is what the fire chief talks about, it's what the city manager talks about, what the council talks about. And that's what we're doing. For the first time ever, in orientation, we told them, here's what's happened to you in each of the stations. This is what you're going to go through. We told them, here's the manuals. Know them early, because we're going to test you on them. So this has been, in my opinion, the most transparent test we've done. At times I was like, why are we telling them these things? I thought we're just going to tell them. And I agree with that. And as we evolve, we're going to continue telling them more and more. Why would I hide it? Because I want to test this way, because I want them to study this way, because it's a 3-bucket system, right? They study this way, I test them and they do well, guess what they're going to do in the field? Exactly what this department needs. is implementing that strategy tactical manual, which means they keep our firefighters safe, which means we're serving our community even more efficiently. Any questions, concerns?
I'd like to know, if it's all right, Councilman, may I ask Captain Fletcher if there's any union issues on this, so I'm aware of that, if there were any?
Sure.
Okay. Captain Fletcher, would you be willing to state, or you want to stay out of this? I'm putting you on the scene, but
I'm only going to make a few specific comments
no good.
regarding the MOU on promotional testing. The city has to give 45 days notice of the written exam and provide the study materials, which they did. They have to invite a member of the union to observe the training of the assessors from out of state to verify that they are out of state. That's part of the MOU, which was done. I was the representative for the local to observe that initial welcoming and meeting all of those assessors. And they are from out of state and other, or I should say out of the area, Reno, Phoenix, and some other departments, Orange County, and I think somewhere else. So that part of the MOU on promotional testing was done. The study materials were given out in a timely manner.
And you feel that everybody did get the information they needed to take this test up front? They were given,
Well, there's a long list of study materials that
Yes.
were given.
everybody had an opportunity to get all those.
I send it out. The HR sends it to us. Glenn, I believe, send it to me. Different people send me different tests depending upon who's in charge of it.
Okay.
Glenna provides the union that information. It's up to me to put that out to the members.
So I'm hearing him say yes.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
So our MOU was met,
Okay.
in my opinion, as the president.
I have another question, but rather if somebody else asks a question.
Are there any other questions on the board?
Can I ask a question? I'm not sure if this would be I'm not really sure. I guess I'll defer to legal to tell me the rules on the Civil Service Board and what constitutes a test, but maybe either Chief Miramontes or the HR staff could tell me. Let me first tell you what I'm not concerned about when we go back to the nature of the test. I understand the 30% written and that it was a qualifier. It's standard. I understand that if they choose to do that. The oral board not having a resume, I understand that because you can either ask that orally on that board or that 60 to 90 seconds at the end that was mentioned. Do you have anything else to add? That's your opportunity. I don't have concerns with any of that. I want to make sure basically, and even if the 30% written was said to be written, but it's later divided into two parts or two tests, I don't have a problem with that either. I want to make sure I'm clear, though, in anything that was formally communicated, the formal announcement, when it talked about 30% written and 70% assessment, assuming that that oral board had any kind of weight whatsoever, is that oral board considered part of the assessment center, or is it above and beyond? And if it's above and beyond, was it ever originally announced formally that there was going to be an oral board?
It's part of the assessment center.
So it's part of the 70%. Okay.
I'm Glenda Coombs in Human Resources.
Okay.
It's part of the assessment center.
All right. That's all I had then.
I'd like to ask a question of Tom Miramontes. I'm hearing about a local company doing this testing. Am I correct? That's what I'm hearing? Okay. Is that a big change in your modus operandi over what you've done in the past and had companies from outside our area come in and handle this situation, and probably people that don't know people? And why did you change at this particular point?
I made the change, as I stated earlier, because I was looking for a different type of test. I was not happy. I didn't think I was getting the type of candidates that the department needed in this style of testing that we're using prior to this test. In discussions with the local company, I felt we could really develop to a point, and I think we've achieved our goal. In fact, I think we have a long way to go, but getting the quality candidate ready to take a quality test so that the department can promote qualified people to implement that stuff out in the field. Think about it also. Guess who puts together an engineer's test? Fire training officers. So it is not unheard of. We do it internally all the time. Guess who puts together our paramedic test? Health district, that we run under as medics and EMTs. It's not unheard of.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? We still have, I guess, any discussion. Let's have any discussion about the Fire Battalion Chief promotional. Because we have the opportunity to do one of the three things we can vote for, pass.
Well,
not
somebody would need to
pass.
make a motion. I mean, those are your three options. Somebody would need to make a motion as to one of those three things.
And the third one being asking for more information.
Well, I can say after I made that statement earlier that I got more information. By statements or cross-examination, I got more information. And I do have a comfort level. Sure, I would have liked to have been briefed before this happened because I probably would ask a lot more questions there. But we don't have that advantage up here at this particular juncture. So I do feel comfortable with where I am with the statements I've heard today that all had the opportunity. When you get into the whole issue of he knows, and she knows, he knows, that's very hard to get into. And I don't know how we get into that.
Well, I feel like I have enough information, so is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion to accept the eligible list for Fire Battalion Chief.
Motion to certify it?
Yes.
Motion has been made to certify Fire Battalion Chief promotional.
Second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm abstaining.
One abstention. It passes.
I am going to abstain because I know that Mr. Mamlin has made a clear explanation, but I still have,
Is it standard to ask why
normally-
abstain? Because he-
Normally, an abstention is different than I'm voting against the motion.
I'm not voting against it, I'm just abstaining. I'm not, I'm not going to say a yes or a nay, I'm just not, I will abstain.
Normally, we
So
abstain.
abstain or say no, or do
Well,
I have to say no? or
I
yes?
can't tell you what to do. Normally speaking, the board's charged with voting on matters. Abstention, generally, the clerk can give you specifics, is when I cannot, because of a personal relationship or a conflict, or I know the people, or something that makes me inability to vote on this matter. An abstention usually is I can't vote because I've got a material interest in this, or I've got a friend that's involved in this. You know, if you have concerns in supporting the motion, your other option is to vote against the motion, but that, usually when we abstain, we say that, we state the
I'm going to
reasons.
go ahead and change mine and say no.
So, 4-1. 4-1. Motion passes. Okay, so where are we at in these numbers of the agenda?
Public
You're
comment.
number 8.
Are you in?
Number 8, citizens' participation.
Yes.
Citizen participation, public comments during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. No subject may be acted upon by the board unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, give your name. For the record, the amount of discussion on any single subject as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Anyone like to speak for the public? From the public? Hearing no speakers, meeting adjourned.